All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we have Hans Kullberg, who is Aviva's dad, a serial entrepreneur, and an author. Hans, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Timothy? Thanks for inviting me to your show.
Of course. No, thanks for coming on, and I'm doing well. And we like to jump right in. So if you could start with telling us a little bit about yourself and some of the stuff that you like to do for fun, that'd be great.
Sure. So I'd really love to start that by saying I am Aviva's dad. I'm a very proud father, father of four. And we'll get to that in a second, but I'll kind of introduce my background. I have been a serial entrepreneur, as you said. Really started in the world of investing and in finance. Really created a couple different businesses. All right. Yeah. So I am Aviva's dad. I am a very proud father of four. That is my first and foremost job, most important job. I will talk about that hopefully much more later in the podcast. But in terms of background, my background has been in finance and technology. Started in the traditional world of financing, of investing, but really started a couple different startups, smaller companies that were using more of a big data, machine learning, AI type of approach to solve challenges within the world of investing. It had a bit of success there, sold a couple different companies, and then really have moved towards focusing on problems that really matter, and really trying to make a difference within the world. Started a nonprofit called Open Dreams, which is basically a college access organization helping high achieving low-income scholars not only gain acceptance into universities, but more importantly, gain scholarships and really change their lives through that, and hopefully the lives of their community, their family, their friends at large. That's kind of my background, and that is a nonprofit, and that's something that I'm actually most proud about. I have segued into the world of authorship, which I think we'll talk about later in the show, but that's a little about me and my background.
Awesome. Now let's jump right into you being Aviva's dad. Tell us about that story.
Sure. Well, I first became a dad about 5 years ago. My first child is actually little Hans, so we call him Hansito. Pride and joy. We loved. I always knew by the time I was 8 years old that I wanted to be a father. I always knew that it would be my most important job, and I wanted to dedicate a lot of time and attention and be hands-on, and really leading with love in terms of the way that I parent, and have taken a lot of pride in that. Not only have sought out different mentors and different father figures that I thought have done a great job, but also have read books on the subject, have written about the subject as well. So Hansito is our first, Sophia Lolita is our second, and then our third is Aviva Lilia. And Aviva, she was born in January 5th, 2020. Fully healthy, full term. Actually came 3 days late, but she was just a big bundle of joy, had the brightest smile in the world, just the type of baby that just made a parent's job really easy. I would say she was by far our easiest baby. She went to sleep kind of at the drop of a hat. Didn't really have to do too much to get her, convince her to go down. Ate everything in the world. She had her dad's stomach and and also taste buds, I think. So she really loved to eat, and was just really full of life. She just had this great smile that would put a smile on your face if you came in her presence. But Aviva had her first hospitalization at 9 days old. She was having a bit of sleep apnea, as well as a very low heart rate, about 60 beats a minute, and very low body temperature, about 95.5 degrees. So she had hypothermia, but she was in our home and it was heated, and we were just very perplexed by that. She ended up going to the ER, to the NICU actually, and they performed thousands of different diagnostic tests on her, including doing a spinal tap, just looking at all of her fluids in her spinal cord. Nothing was really indicating any kind of problem. She had a full bill of health. She actually came, back to her normal vitals within a couple of days. The doctors kept her there for a few more days after that, and then released her. She experienced no other symptoms, no other problems, no other complications, and then it happened again 3 months later. And so this time we were very shocked about that. Very similar presentation, very similar symptoms. Took her back, and very similar outcome as well at the hospital. All the doctors were left scratching their heads, wondering what's going on. We always left the hospital with more questions than answers, and there was more studies, more tests always being done on a genetic DNA basis, as well as just a variety of heart monitors, etc. And this episodic kind of chronic illness kind of happened every couple months. We're not really sure why. It kind of synced along the lines of growth spurts or known growth spurts, but we weren't really sure if it was a heart issue or something subcellular even. The doctors thought it might have been a mitochondrial issue. We sought out mitochondrial specialist, and nothing really came of that. You fast forward to when she was 10 months old, and by that time she had already had 5 different episodes. She had 4 in Oakland, where we were living at that time, Oakland, California. And then we had moved out of the house. We thought it might have been maybe something with the house, environmental factor. And 4 months passed with nothing. We moved to San Diego, where we have family. And unfortunately, it happened again last November of 2020. That was her 5th episode. She recovered, within hours. She just had a very slow heart rate, about 65 beats a minute, and really came back. And 10 days later, she had a presentation where she was vomiting. That was unusual. That was something net new. And we rushed her to the ER. She was hooked up on all types of monitors, on all types of vitals. And they started giving her medication, which was actually a departure from what had normally been the case. And a few minutes later, actually after one of the medications they administered, she actually had a multi-organ system failure. Everything basically collapsed. Her heart's collapsed, her lungs, her brain function. It was, and it always will be the most devastating time of my life. We spent an agonizing 24 hours there in the hospital with her on life support, but they couldn't bring her back. They couldn't bring back her brain function. And unfortunately, she was pronounced dead on November 18th, 2020, which is when I lost my baby girl. We held her. We had a couple hours with her at the end where we were able to bathe her, change her, tell her how much we love her, sing to her. And I told her that, Daddy is going to make her proud. I told Aviva that, I will live my life in honor of her, and I'll do good works in her name, and I want people to know about her and remember her as well. She had so much life to give, so much joy to spread to the world. When we were doing her celebration of life, the thing that really hurt me the most, above and beyond losing her, was really the fact that she won't be able to have that impact on other people. Well, she won't be able to bring that positive joy, that light, that life that she did for us in the 10 months, mostly during COVID. And so we were very hands-on with her, which is definitely an upside of COVID. There wasn't that chance she's not going to have that chance to meet those kindergartners, or go to her first dance, or I won't be able to walk her down the aisle. things that I really envisioned for her, and really get to see her blossom and see who she would become. But since that time, I've really tried to dedicate my life and really every day to doing something to bring her joy, because of her, bring that joy to others. And so that's partly why I'm here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, in reading up about you before the podcast, you mentioned the world's kind of attitude towards grief. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. One of the things that we've learned, that I've learned throughout this grieving journey, you might be able to tell from my background, when I do something, I kind of go 100%, 110% all in. And grief was something that I never known before. I probably didn't even know how to spell grief. I was just so far removed from really understanding, that process and that journey. And, grief in and of itself is an emotion that we feel, that is magnified when you really love that person. You don't really grieve things that you don't love, or people that you don't love. But when, a very close family member passes, that's, the hardest and the most tragic form of grief. And when it's your own child, knowing that I would have gladly switched places with her on that hospital gurney, it's almost as if a part of me has been lost and part of me has died. But so I went through all of the 5 stages of grief, and they don't happen at any one stage. The shock, the anger, the acceptance at the very end, bargaining before that. But it goes back and forth. There's a lot of things that I was angry about. There's a lot of things that I was shocked and just really numb. Simple things like going to a grocery store, I just couldn't do the first few weeks. But through that, I decided to see a therapist for the first time in my life, which I think was very helpful, very useful for about 6 months there. Read a lot of books. Have read about 30 books on anything from grief to child loss to the afterlife, to everything else. And those have given me a lot of knowledge and insight in terms of what to expect and really understand the emotions that I'm going through. There's a very famous one, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 Stages of Grief. That's it's not sequential, but it's certainly very, very relevant and very, very on topic. But when I told you earlier about what I learned about society and grief, I've learned that society doesn't necessarily embrace grief well. What I mean by that is that a lot of times when I try to tell my story, it makes others uncomfortable. Also, when this happened over a year ago, we just actually celebrated the 1-year anniversary on November 18th. I still haven't heard anything from some of my friends, some of my close friends, people that I thought would actually be there, and people who were in my wedding, that I just haven't heard from. People have just kind of been distant. Where others actually have come out of the woodworks and have actually been big sources of support. The commonality with those people has tended to be that they understand grief because they've gone through something similar, either a sibling or a parent, sometimes even a child. When those people reach out, a lot of times it's because they've understood that coming out, or actually reaching out for support and showing up is actually one of the best things that anyone can really do to support a friend or colleague or family member that's going through this. And so, it's really, one of the things that I really want to do in this, change in my life and in my life priorities is really give insight to people about what this journey looks like, what the feelings are, because there's thousands of different ways to grief, and there's really no right way. Everyone does it in their own unique way. My wife and I have done it in very different ways, but being supportive of each other throughout that journey. But what I have learned is that there is a wrong way to grieve, and oftentimes that's really when someone just locks it away and someone tries to block it out and avoid it and put it in a box and don't even talk about it. A lot of times that comes back actually in harmful ways or damaging ways later on in different forms. And so that was one thing that I was cognizant of, that I wanted to be actually, talking about it not with therapists, but also with friends along the way. And so, when we as society, reach out and talk to people, and that's kind of my one message would be, if you do know someone who has been going through grief, and we all around the world have been, given COVID, check in on them, send them a text message, give them a phone call, even if they don't answer. You don't realize how helpful and how important that is, just to know that that person is not walking through his or her grief journey alone. It's really like there's almost a misconception about space and distance. A lot of times we confuse giving someone distance, as in don't talk to them and kind of avoid them at all costs, with space, which is actually what we really need, is actually that space to be able to express our emotions, or express our anger, or cry with you, or have a hug. Given that platform, given that time and attention to that griever is very important. And so, first of all, Timothy, I'd like to thank you for giving me this space. But some of the most helpful conversations I've had were actually Zoom calls with friends that they're on the other side of the line, just listening and just listen to me either be angry or sad or whatever else it is. And so, I'll stop there. But it's there's a lot that we can do as a society. But if I could boil it down to one takeaway, is really just show up.
Show up. I love it. Awesome. Well, tell us about the books that you're writing and the books that you've written and your vision for those books.
Yeah. So if you're watching on screen, there is, you can't see it actually, but my background is actually Baby Aviva Orangutan Diva. It is an illustration from a children's book that I just wrote and published in October of this year. I actually started writing this a week after Aviva passed. As I said, one of the hardest parts was not being able to, see her go out into the world and create that positive impact. I think we as parents, when we hold our babies for the first time in the hospital, we just want the best future for our child. And so, you talk to any parent and they can talk to you about how their life has changed and how their priorities have changed and values have changed after they hold their baby for that first time. In a similar vein, in terms of a transition of priorities, when you lose a child, there's a whole different clarity in terms of what's important and what's worthwhile in terms of your time, in terms of where you're putting your energy. And for us, it's really about, we just want our child to be remembered. That's really the sole focus of it. But for me, it's really being remembered in a positive way and enabling her to actually still have that positive future by having an impact on others. And so, how do you actually create that as a father? That was something that I was just jostling within my mind, it was just, how can I actually give Aviva the best future that she could have, and really have her create impact on others. And that really came out as a children's book. And so I started writing it about this orangutan, because one of our very last adventures was to the San Diego Zoo, and our very last animal we saw there was the orangutans. And she was infatuated with them. She was just really obsessed, and she was just fawning over them. And this was 2 days before she passed, actually. And so orangutans are, this really gentle soul, and obviously, yeah, they're very intelligent. But there's actually not that many books written about orangutans. You see gorillas, you see monkeys, but orangutans are kind of the overlooked ape, if you will. And so, so this book, it actually has a lot of positive messages that parents can teach children, or parents can talk about with children. It's about an orangutan that perseveres through a lot of adversity, goes through a conquest in which she's actually trying to rescue her village by getting some food, getting bananas in particular, from a very dangerous part of this jungle. She has to cross a river full of crocodiles and face off against this ferocious tiger. But this orangutan is just a baby and doesn't really have any strength or powers like of that sort to defeat this tiger. However, what she does have is a singing ability and a dancing ability, and she loves to sing and dance. She's this little diva, and so she starts singing and dancing, and lo and behold, the tiger starts singing and dancing as well, and then before you know it, they're dancing together. By the end, they become really good friends. They stop to have a break, and she asked, could I actually have some bananas? And he said, sure. All you really had to do was ask. And then she rides home on the elephant, Sophia elephant, her friend, who helped her accomplish the mission. But she goes home to as the heroine, and saves her village from hunger. So some of the messages in the book is really, about using your own innate talents, whatever gifts you have. You might think that you're this meek and feeble orangutan, but in fact, there are a lot of God-given innate gifts that we all possess, that we can actually conquer, some of the biggest challenges in our lives. That's a pervasive one. And then, it's being true to yourself. At the very end, it's really about being true to who you are as a person, not trying to be someone else. Don't conform with society, whatever they want you to be. Some minor messages as well is really, the importance of teamwork, the importance of asking a question, and the importance of not judging the books by its cover, because everyone else was scared of this tiger when in fact he's just this friendly giant beast. But at the end of the day, they become great friends. And so the intent of the book is really to spread the message throughout throughout the world, and to really see the impact that Aviva can have on the 4, 5, 6-year-old readers, as well as their parents that do read it, and for them to get to know Aviva, but also get to meet her in this unique way, and also get a positive message out of the book. So it's a rhyming book. It's really beautifully illustrated, if I must say, because it wasn't me. It was actually Carl Mefford, who did a really excellent job, and we're very appreciative of everything that he's done. So the book is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pretty much any outlet that you can think of. There's an audiobook, ebook, paperback, and as well as hardback. So
I love it. I love it. Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for writing that, because I'm sure it'll impact a lot of kids' lives and spread that joy that I know that you want to spread.
Yeah, thank you. You also mentioned other books, and yes, so I am writing some other one other main book. It's right now the working title is actually let me back it up. One of the things that has frustrated me, that I've learned about through grief is some of the things that people actually tell you when your child passes. One of the things is that is a very common phrase. When you lose your parent, you lose your past. When you lose your spouse, you lose your present. And when you lose your child, you lose your future. Now that phrase, I just really did not sit well with me. I don't know why anyone would say that to a bereaved parent. But that has sparked a lot of motivation in me to actually create that better future for my daughter Aviva. Another thing a lot of people say is I can't even imagine, or a lot of times I don't even want to imagine. And it's, if you actually take that apart and actually think about it, of course, most people can't imagine, that, I don't want even my worst enemy to experience, the tragedy of losing a child. But when you say it to someone like myself who has lost a child, it's almost as if they don't even want to go, close to me with a 10-foot pole, because they don't even want to put themselves in my shoes, even just to imagine. Because I think, being able to relate to experience without having experienced it is really the first step towards empathy. And I think empathy is the first step towards support. And so we as a society kind of have to imagine. I would say we should imagine what it would actually feel like, and that would actually heighten our sense of empathy overall. And so the other part of it is when when I walk around and went back to work, and I'm walking around, on the sidewalk, it's almost as if, I don't have any gaping wounds or any injury from something like this, when in fact, Aviva's on my top of my mind 24/7 all the time. It's almost invisible to society. We don't really understand how difficult losing a child actually has on an individual. And I'd probably extend that to grief in general. Losing anyone can have, a prolonged effect. Sitting here a year later, it still has an effect. And so it's almost as if this is an invisible wound. And so when I think about, what society can actually do to really help, it would be imagining this invisible wound, which is the working title. And it kind of will give a glimpse, or really an insight on, how, what the process looks like, or what it looks on the inside, just from my own perspective, but then hopefully also give perspective on how we can actually best help and support those that are going through grief. And the mission for that book is really to help all those, future grievers, especially bereaved parents, in their grief journey, by educating and really, giving knowledge to those that really want to help, but don't really understand how or what they can actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're writing that book. Awesome. Are there any other books you have in the works that you want to chat about?
I do have a follow-up children's book. It will be more about grief, and it'll be kind of explain a lot of these concepts, but more in a fun and rhyming fashion as well. There is a book that I have been writing for a couple years now, which is more along the parenting journey. So it's called Dad Hacks. And I kind of I started writing it after my firstborn, but it was, now it actually sounds almost naive, because there's no hacks to actually being a really great dad. Is really a misnomer. You really have to kind of lead with love, and lead with a lot of patience. If I were to give any advice for anyone thinking about being a parent or is a parent, patience is the superpower that I would give all the fathers in the world, and mothers, because it is something that that we don't have. We don't have enough of. Whatever amount of patience we have, we can always use more. And kids, by definition, really test our patience at the end of the day. And I think the perspective that I have now, with losing Aviva, I think about all of those times where, I'm getting up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m, or I'm changing a really dirty diaper that goes through her diaper and gets into her shirt. Or, any time that my children are, throwing a temper tantrum in public. Those things are the things that we as parents kind of, look at and say, those are the, the shits part of parenting, is something that we don't look at as saying, as being fond of, right? Who looks at a kid throwing a temper tantrum saying, oh, well, I'm really enjoying this. But the perspective that losing child does is really makes me actually more appreciative of those times. And I now look at my other kids and I say, they might be making my anger rage, and I still do get angry, but I also kind of take a step back and say, at least I do have this opportunity, to deal with you, or to be with you, or to, show you my love, or show you how much patience I have, because it's something that I really, really wish I could get back, for Aviva. And so it gives me this other perspective on parenting. So I do hope to get that out, probably be a little bit from now, but that is the other book I'm writing.
Awesome. I love it. If there are one or two people that you can meet right now that would really help you get your book's message out there, they could be a specific person or a type of person, who would they be and how would they do it?
Yeah, this one actually you might probably most people haven't even heard of. So I told you I've been reading a lot of different grief books, and there's been a lot of them that have really spoken to me. There's one called A Man's Search for Meaning. It's by Viktor Frankl, who is a Holocaust survivor. He's since now departed, but Man's Search for Meaning kind of goes through really this thing that we call life, and really trying to see really bad situations and shitty situations, if I will, the Holocaust being absolutely one of those in the society, the history of human society. But it's really about having this choice, and really about looking at being able to have a different perspective on different situations, and we get to choose how we actually tackle and conquer adversity. And that's definitely very relevant in this, in tragedy. And so Viktor Frankl he sounds really, really great, and I would really love to meet him. Can't do that right now, but there is one other person, Edith Eagers. Edith Eagers is also a fellow Holocaust survivor, survived through Auschwitz. She is still living. She was in Auschwitz when she was 16 years old. She's since gone on to become a psychologist, but also in the same vein of Viktor Frankl, kind of talks about, her big thing is about choice. We as humans have the ability to choose how, which path we take. Every single day we're confronted with decisions, big decisions, small decisions, but we get to choose how we actually, live our life. And there's nobody else to live that life than ourselves. And so she, does that more so in the lens of a lot of these tragic events, and really saying we get to actually determine what kind of perspective or what kind of lens we actually take on a situation. It could be, completely bad. Her losing her whole, or most of her family during the Holocaust. What does that actually mean going forward? And so she's really dedicated her life. She became a psychologist at the age of, I think, about 45 or 50, and now she's about 95 years old, and actually lives close to me in La Jolla. So I would really love to be able to meet her, and that would be the number one person I would meet. So
I gotcha. What's stopping you from going over there and just knocking on the door?
I don't have her address, unfortunately, but no, that would be, I would really love to talk about, grief with her. It's a topic that I didn't, as I said, I didn't really know that much about, but I'm, kind of determined to, I don't know if this is me making a future out of it, but really helping those that are going through grief. I feel an abundant sense of a desire to actually help others. And I think out of any feelings, there's a lot of different, obviously emotions that are overwhelmed. But the one thing that has always stuck is I really feel like I have to live every single day, knowing that every single day could be my last. And that's no more relevant, no more pertinent than ever than now. But doing that to really live my life to really help others. And so I'd like to, dedicate that and yeah, we'll see where the journey goes. I do love talking about it, to tell you the truth. And, even conversations like this have been one step that has helped me through my grieving journey. Every single child or parent that actually sends a picture saying that, their child loves the book, or they're getting like a little stuffed orangutan, like my friend Chris did the other day. It's just one little drop in that bucket of joy that was completely emptied after Aviva passed. And so, I'm just trying to put one foot in front of the other and kind of see where it goes.
Absolutely. What is the most important one or two things that everyday people can do to really help you spread the story that you're trying to spread and the joy and the inspiration that you're trying to spread?
Yeah. So when I think about that question, the one, there's actually two things that actually really stand out is one for all parents that might be listening to this. I always thought I would never experience anything like this. I feel completely blessed and fortunate, both in personal life as well as business life. There's been and as well as personal satisfaction through Open Dreams, the nonprofit that I helped founded. Have got to see a lot of positivity in my life. That's not to say that I've never felt tragedy, but I never thought that something like this could actually befall our family. And nobody ever does. Nobody ever expects that. No parent has a child expecting them to die. But what I will say is that perspective that I've gained and that patience that I have with my children is something that I do want to pass on to others. I want to give that perspective to the father walking down the street with a little baby in his arms, and I want to scream to them like, congratulations, and hey, enjoy that moment. Get off your phone, or stop paying attention to your work call, or whatever it is. Enjoy that moment that you have with your child, and cherish your children. So that is my message number one. And I think by reading a children's book with your child, you're actually creating that time that you get to spend with them. And I think that's such a treasured time of the day. I love reading to my kids at nap time and at bedtime. But the second thing that I would say is, my mission is to really help others that are like me in my shoes. And I know not everybody really is as forthright as me, or can talk about something very personal. I know my wife can't, but what I would say is that we should, and I want to actually give that insight, and I want to share kind of my journey and what I've been going through, so that the friends, the family, the colleagues, everybody who's hasn't experienced tragedy, doesn't really know about grief, can actually get a little bit of insight, a little bit of understanding, and through that, hopefully help their loved one in a way that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. And so, if you are listening and you do know anyone who's been through a tough time, send them a text, send them a phone call, and just reach out in general and just show up. I kind of envision in the future this a month almost dedicated, just like we have Breast Cancer Awareness Month and Black History Month and a lot of other months. I think there almost should be a month kind of dedicated towards grief, PTSD as well. Just so that we as a society can actually understand, what a lot of these people are going through. And so those are the two takeaways. And I think the final one, if you really do get the book, Baby Aviva Orangutan Diva, I really would love you to read it with your child. But also if you want to leave a review, that is actually the most helpful thing, to leave a review on Amazon to really get that book out into the world. So thanks.
Love it. Love it. Well, now we're going to jump into our Thriving 3. And what is your favorite book, movie, or podcast? Pick one.
Yeah, my favorite movie of all time is Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump, back in, I think, 1994, I remember sitting in the movie theater at 11 years old and watching for the nearly 3 hours, right? It's a really long movie. I love historical fiction. And I would say that it's a good way of actually introducing a lot of history, as Forrest Gump goes through a lot of different times throughout history that have really made America overall. But he also goes through a lot of highs and lows in life as well. And when he actually loses his wife, Jenny, he goes, Jenny, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Honestly, I mean, that actually is something that I've always related to, but it actually hits home a lot now. And I think it's very poignant. It's funny, it's comical, it's sad, it's romantic. And it also showcases a good father as well, as Forrest tries to be for his little Forrest. And so that is one classic that I could watch again and again. So
Absolutely. I love it. What's one way you like to take care of yourself?
I am a surfer. So I love surfing. I live in San Diego. It's something that I picked up when I was about 20 years old. I actually moved to Peru for a year when I was 27, and learned how to surf pretty well, and was really excited to move to San Diego, not only to be close to family. My sister lives across the street from us, but to be in the ocean, be in the waves, is something that I do early in the mornings, usually around 6 a.m. before the kids get up, because that's pretty much the only free time I have all day. And try to hit the waves. There's a lot of, one of the things I've been trying to do a lot of is meditation and mindfulness, and that's really being in tune with your thoughts and being in tune with the moment. Talking about cherish the moment. But when you're surfing, you actually have to focus on the moment. You have to you're kind of out there in the water, everything's calm. You just getting the sun rays. Vitamin D is also important. But you have to be in the moment. Otherwise, when you get on that wave, you're gonna crash and fall. And so it's an exhilarating feeling. If you haven't done it, definitely give it a try. And if you do it, keep on keeping on. So yeah.
Love it. And what is one action step you can take right now or continue to take to either meet Edith Eagers? Is it Eagers or Eggers?
That is a good question. I think it's Egers. It could be either Eagers or Eggers. I'm not sure.
Sounds good. Well, to meet Edith or to really continue to get your book's message out there.
Yeah. For me, I certainly want to keep on this journey, and I have been just trying to, as a self-published author, just trying to get the word out about the book in and of itself, and get that into as many hands as possible. And for me, it's not about the sales. It's about the mission of letting people, introducing the world to my daughter. She only got to meet 10 or 15 people total throughout her lifetime because of COVID. my own brother never got to meet her, and my children are very young. Her siblings are very young. So my hope is that they'll actually get to, remember her in that way. So in that vein, it's really, reaching out to mommy bloggers or teachers or schools or libraries, or podcasts like yours, podcasts where you have, people who really are trying to change the world. And so I want to keep doing that. And then in terms of meeting Edith, maybe I'll find her address and bike ride over there. No, I'm going to try to find her contact information, because she's definitely been very, very transformational to my wife's journey as well as mine. And so we've both been writing a lot throughout this. And that's one of the things about grief is one of the ways that we're filled with so many different emotions, right? I felt like overwhelmed with a desire to, get this out artistically, and whether that's with a pen and paper or with illustrations or with even song, have been, have felt, more artistic expression through grief. And that's definitely been one of the ways that I've been healing through grief as well.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I have one more question for you, which
Sure.
is kind of unrelated to the rest of the podcast show topics, but I think is really in line with your desire to bring joy to people's lives and help them out. You know how there are people in life where they'll be stuck in like a fixed mindset, not accepting help, not willing to change type of mentality, and sometimes they'll die there. And then sometimes they change, and when they change to that growth mindset, willing to accept change, willing to accept help. In your opinion, what is the catalyst that makes somebody change from that first area of life, fixed mindset, not accepting help, to the second area, growth mindset, accepting help, accepting change?
Yeah. And it's a very important point. And so thanks for bringing that up, Timothy. I think one of the life philosophies that I live by is try everything once, whether that's a new adventure, a new experience, a new book, a new food that you might not taste. You really don't know if something's going to help or hurt, or you're going to like something or not, unless you actually even try it. I should practice this with my kids, because they don't try any of the food that we give them. But I think that is the very first thing, kind of mental shift that you actually have to have in your mind. It's almost a mindset of saying, I'm not going to be closed-minded. But you have to actually recognize, what you're doing, if that's helping you or hurting you. I think that self-awareness actually has to come first, even before saying, I'm going to try something. So for me, I had always been skeptical of therapists in terms of how, what they would do, or if they would actually be helpful. And even, a few sessions in, I was kind of telling myself, man, I'm actually doing 95% of the talking here. Like, I don't know why I'm paying hundreds of dollars for the therapist. But what I realized is that you have to actually, with therapy, you're actually talking through a lot of the problems, a lot of the feelings that you have. Or even going to a grief group. There's a grief group called Compassionate Friends, big circle, lots of bereaved parents. And it's really hard to actually get the courage to go there when everyone's in a very personal state of mind in terms of raw emotions. But for me, it was always about, let's give it a try. Why not? And the downside, if you think about it, a lot of times the downside is very de minimis. It's very minimal. Whereas the upside, what can you actually do by, taking that first step? For me, I never created a children's book, and I was like, well, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to try it. So let's try this once, and let's see where it goes. And so self-awareness and live by the motto, try everything once. That will give you that growth mindset, whether it's a course that you're trying to study, or someplace you want to go, or a person you want to reach out to, or a book you want to read. Just try it once and see what happens.
Love it. There we go. Well, Hans, thank you for coming on the show. Is there anything else you want to chat about before we sign off?
Tim, I just want to say, thank you for giving us this platform. I think, what you're doing is really excellent. And, I see a lot of positivity coming out of your podcast. And so if there's anything I can actually just leave the listeners on, show up for anyone that's in grief, and for all the parents, cherish all your children and lead with love. A lot of patience to you. That's it. Thanks.
There we go. Awesome. Well, you guys heard it here first. Make sure to go out, reach out to the people that are close to you that may be grieving, but also buy his book and read Hans's book, and make sure to share it with your friends and family. Leave a review on Amazon to share the joy of Aviva's life. And Hans, thank you for coming on the show. You guys, thank you for watching. As we always ask, send this episode to 1 to 2 people need to hear this message. Shoot us a 5-star review on iTunes, and we're out.
All right.